Hey there. Remember all that talk about Bitcoin hitting $100,000?
Oh, yeah?
Tons of people requested a deep dive on what it all really means, beyond just the headlines and all the hype.
Right.
So we're diving in.
Awesome.
We're going to explore what this milestone really means.
Yeah,
Not just for the markets, but for regular people like you and me.
absolutely.
I mean, it's crazy to think
Yeah,
that a single price point can become like this huge cultural thing.
it really is fascinating.
And we're not just talking numbers here, all right?
Oh, no, not at all.
We're talking about how all this impacts how people make decisions,
Mhm.
their perceptions, even their understanding of finance, like the whole future of it.
It's a big deal, for sure.
Yeah, and there are some really interesting trends emerging that we're going to dig into.
For sure.
Okay, so let's start with the folks who got into Bitcoin early.
Okay,
Those who took a chance on it when it was still this kind of fringe idea.
right.
They must be feeling pretty vindicated right now.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, seeing their faith in it rewarded like this,
Yeah.
it's gotta feel good, right?
It's more than just vindication, though.
Oh,
Imagine holding on to something for years
yeah,
through all the doubt and skepticism,
right.
watching it defy all the predictions,
Mm-hmm.
and then boom, $100,000.
Wow.
That's a powerful mix of emotions right there.
Yeah, I bet.
It reinforces their beliefs, validates their risk tolerance,
Hmm.
and probably fuels this feeling of being ahead of the curve.
Right, like they've cracked some secret code
Exactly.
that the rest of us missed out on.
And that brings us to this fascinating psychological aspect.
Yeah.
How this price point actually shifts people's risk tolerance.
Oh, that's interesting.
They're suddenly dealing with life-changing amounts of money.
Yeah,
And that can trigger totally different behavior than when they were, say,
yeah.
just playing around with a few $100 back in the day.
Right, like the game has completely different stakes now.
Exactly.
Wow.
The pull to lock in those gains can be overwhelming.
Oh, I bet.
It's a classic case of what behavioral economists call loss aversion.
Loss aversion.
It means the pain of losing those potential profits
Right.
looms larger than the potential gains from holding on.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the other side of the coin.
Uh-huh.
The people who heard about Bitcoin but didn't jump in early,
Right.
they're probably looking at this $100,000 figure with a serious case of FOMO,
Oh, absolutely.
fear of missing out.
Big time.
For those who didn't get in on the ground floor,
Yeah,
this is a huge reminder of the opportunities they missed.
it is.
And suddenly it seems like everyone's a crypto expert,
Right, yeah.
sharing stories of becoming millionaires overnight.
And that's where things can get dangerous.
Oh, how so?
Because people might jump in without really understanding what they're getting into.
I see, yeah.
FOMO can drive some really impulsive decisions, especially when it's fueled by those stories of easy riches.
So, besides understanding the technology behind Bitcoin, what are some things people should consider before making any investment decisions, especially when emotions are running high like this?
One crucial thing is understanding your own risk tolerance,
Risk tolerance.
meaning, are you comfortable with the volatility of the crypto market?
Okay.
Because those dramatic price swings,
Yeah.
they're not going away anytime soon,
Right.
especially now with this new price point acting as a kind of psychological magnet.
A psychological magnet, what do you mean by that?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
This $100,000 mark becomes a reference point
Uh-huh.
for both buyers and sellers.
Right.
Early adopters might see it as a signal to cash out,
Oh, I see.
take their profits while the price is high,
Makes sense.
and that selling pressure
Yeah.
that can drive the price down.
So it's not just new buyers flooding in because of FOMO.
Exactly.
It's more complex than that.
It is. You have this dynamic interplay of forces.
Okay.
You've got the sellers taking profits. You've
Yeah.
got the FOMO-driven buyers entering the market.
Right.
And then you have those who believe this is just the beginning for Bitcoin,
Oh, wow.
holding on to their coins, expecting even higher prices.
So it's like a tug of war.
It really is.
And all that just amplifies the volatility of the crypto market.
Exactly.
So it's not just about understanding Bitcoin itself. It's
Right.
about understanding the psychology of the market
Mhm.
and all the forces driving those price swings.
Precisely.
And now we've got these big institutions entering the scene. It's
Yeah.
not just individual investors anymore.
Not anymore.
We've got hedge funds and banks getting involved.
Mm.
That's a whole other level.
It is?
So what kind of impact does that have?
Well, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It really changes the game.
How so?
When you have institutions with deep pockets and reputations to uphold,
Right.
and they start investing in Bitcoin,
Uh-huh.
it lends legitimacy to the whole thing.
It's like a stamp of approval from the traditional financial world.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that institutional buy-in can trigger a cascade effect.
Oh, interesting.
It normalizes Bitcoin for everyday investors, which could attract even more capital into the market.
So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Pretty much the more institutions buy,
Yeah.
the more attractive Bitcoin becomes.
And that fuels further adoption.
Exactly.
But this mainstreaming of Bitcoin,
Yeah.
it brings up another important issue, regulation.
Oh, right.
Now that Bitcoin's on the radar of governments and financial watchdogs, what kind of regulatory landscape can we expect?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
As Bitcoin's impact grows,
Yeah.
regulators are trying to figure out how to handle it.
I bet.
How to balance innovation with protecting consumers
Right.
and keeping the market stable.
That sounds like a tough balancing act.
It is. It really is.
So what are some of the approaches being considered?
Well, some people are pushing for stricter KYC and AML laws.
KYC and AML.
Know your customer and anti-money laundering
Okay.
to prevent illegal activities.
That makes sense.
Others are focused on taxation frameworks,
Right.
treating Bitcoin as property or a commodity for tax purposes.
I see.
Each approach has different implications for the market.
I bet.
Finding the right balance is going to be crucial.
It makes you wonder
Yeah.
if too much regulation could actually stifle the innovation that made Bitcoin so revolutionary in the first place.
That's the big debate, isn't it?
It is.
Striking that balance between innovation and protection.
Yeah,
It's not easy.
not at all.
But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
The regulatory landscape is going to play a huge role in shaping Bitcoin's future.
Okay, so we've talked about the psychology, the market dynamics, and
Yep.
the looming presence of regulation.
Right.
But Bitcoin at $100,000?
Yeah.
It's more than just a financial story, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
It's become this cultural phenomenon.
It
A
has.
symbol of something bigger.
I agree.
This milestone really cements Bitcoin's place,
Yeah.
not just in the financial world, but in our collective consciousness.
It's become a symbol
Yeah.
of a tech-driven future,
Uh-huh.
a challenge to traditional systems.
Mm-hmm.
And for some, even a philosophical statement.
You see it everywhere now.
I know, right?
In movies, TV shows, music, even just casual conversations.
Yeah,
It's gone from a niche topic to a mainstream meme.
it really has.
What do you think this cultural permeation tells us?
It shows a shift in perception.
How so?
Bitcoin is not just a digital currency anymore.
Right.
It represents decentralization,
Uh-huh.
a rebellion against centralized institutions,
Interesting.
and for many, a hope for a more equitable financial system.
But while that narrative is compelling,
Yeah.
doesn't it also highlight the growing wealth gap,
Oh, absolutely.
especially for those who missed out on the early adoption phase?
That's a valid concern, for sure.
As the price of Bitcoin skyrockets, it's creating a new class of crypto millionaires,
Right.
but it also underscores the existing wealth disparities in our society.
It does.
Those who invested early,
Yeah.
often taking a big risk when Bitcoin was still in its infancy,
Mm-hmm.
they're reaping the rewards now.
And others are feeling left behind.
Exactly.
It creates a real tension between those who see Bitcoin as a path to financial freedom and those who feel it's making an already unfair system even worse.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
For sure.
And then there are the broader economic implications of all this new Bitcoin wealth.
Yeah.
How does it impact spending and investment? What does that mean for the overall economy?
It's like injecting this potent new element into the system.
Okay.
Imagine all these people suddenly having significant wealth thanks to Bitcoin.
Right.
Their spending habits are going to change.
Of course.
And that could impact all sorts of sectors of the economy.
Like what?
Well, we might see a surge in demand for luxury goods
Oh, yeah.
or investments in real estate,
That makes sense.
which could boost those industries.
Right.
But this increased spending power also comes with risks.
Oh. Like what?
Well, the influx of capital from Bitcoin
Yeah.
could fuel asset bubbles in other markets.
How so?
People might chase quick returns,
Oh, I see.
leading to inflated prices and potential economic instability.
It's like a chain reaction.
It is.
The ripples from Bitcoin's price surge
Yeah.
extend way beyond the cryptocurrency market itself.
Exactly.
So we need to look at the bigger picture.
We do.
It's not just about Bitcoin in isolation.
It's about understanding the ripple effects of these kinds of technological disruptions.
Bitcoin at $100,000.
Yeah.
It's not just a story about digital currency.
It's a case study in how innovation can trigger these complex changes across so many aspects of our lives.
Okay, so with all these complexities, what's the key takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they try to navigate this rapidly evolving landscape?
Well, I think it's important to remember that we're living in this era of rapid convergence.
Convergence?
Yeah, technology, finance, psychology, even cultural trends.
Right.
They're all intertwining in ways we're only beginning to understand.
It's like the old rules don't apply anymore.
Exactly.
And we're all trying to figure out this new terrain.
Together.
So how do we navigate this new landscape?
I think the key is to develop a more holistic understanding of all these interconnected forces.
So it's not enough to just follow the headlines or get caught up in the hype.
No, not at all.
You need to be able to connect the dots, see the bigger picture, and anticipate the ripple effects.
Exactly.
And that brings us to a final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Okay.
If Bitcoin, which was once dismissed as this fringe idea, could rise to such prominence and value, what other seemingly out there concepts might become mainstream in the years ahead?
That's a great question.
It's almost like a challenge to look beyond the current horizon and imagine those future possibilities. What trends are emerging right now? That might seem radical today, but could completely reshape our world in the coming decade.
It's an invitation to be curious.
Right.
To stay open to new ideas and to develop that critical thinking mindset that allows you to separate the signal from the noise.
In this constantly changing landscape.
Exactly.
And maybe, just maybe, spot the next Bitcoin before it hits $100,000.
Exactly.
The future is full of surprises.
It is.
The key is to be ready to embrace them.
Well said.
So keep those deep dive requests coming.
Yes.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating look at the world beneath the surface.
Looking forward to it.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, keep diving deep.
Absolutely.
So we've got individual investors riding this emotional roller coaster. And now these big players like hedge funds and banks are stepping in. What kind of impact does that have?
Well, it's a game changer. You know, when institutions with serious money and a reputation to protect, when they start investing in Bitcoin, it kind of gives the whole thing this air of legitimacy.
It's like a seal of approval from Wall Street.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this institutional buy-in, it can set off a chain reaction.
Oh, interesting.
It makes Bitcoin seem more normal to everyday investors.
Right.
Which can bring in even more money.
So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Pretty much, the more institutions buy in, the more attractive Bitcoin seems.
And that just keeps the ball rolling.
Exactly.
But this mainstreaming of Bitcoin, it brings up another big question, regulation.
Ah, yes.
Now that Bitcoin is on the radar of governments and regulators, what kind of rules can we expect?
That's the big unknown, isn't it?
It is. It's a bit of a Wild West out there.
As Bitcoin gets bigger, regulators are scrambling to figure out what to do.
Makes sense.
Trying to balance encouraging innovation with protecting people and making sure the market is stable.
It's a tricky situation.
It really is.
What are some of the things they're considering?
Well, some folks are pushing for stricter know-your-customer rules.
Okay.
And anti-money laundering regulation.
To prevent illegal stuff.
Exactly. They want to make sure things are above board.
Makes sense.
Others are focused on taxes.
Right.
Figuring out how to tax Bitcoin, whether it's property or a commodity.
I see.
Each approach has different consequences.
Right.
Finding the right balance is going to be key.
It makes you wonder, though, if too much regulation could stifle the innovation that made Bitcoin so unique in the first place.
That's the debate, right?
It is.
How to encourage progress without stifling it.
Right. It's a fine line.
But one thing is certain.
What's that?
Regulation is going to have a huge impact on Bitcoin's future.
Okay, so we've talked about the psychology, the market forces, and the looming regulations. But Bitcoin at $100,000, it's more than just a financial story.
Oh, for sure.
It's become this cultural phenomenon.
It has.
A symbol of something bigger.
Absolutely.
This price point, it really solidifies Bitcoin's place.
Yeah.
Not just in finance.
Right.
But in our collective imagination.
It's become the symbol of a future driven by technology.
Uh-huh.
A challenge to the old ways of doing things.
Interesting.
And for some people,
yeah,
it's a philosophical statement.
you see it everywhere now.
I know.
Movies, TV, music.
Yeah,
It's even in our everyday conversations.
it's gone mainstream.
It has. What do you think that says about Bitcoin?
It shows a shift in how people see it.
Okay.
Bitcoin's not just digital money anymore.
Right.
It represents decentralization,
Uh-huh.
a pushback against big institutions.
Interesting.
And for a lot of folks,
Yeah.
it represents hope for a fairer financial system.
That's a powerful narrative.
It is.
But it also highlights the growing inequality, doesn't it?
It does, for sure.
Yeah. Especially for those who missed the boat early on.
That's a valid point.
As the price of Bitcoin goes up,
Yeah.
we're seeing a new wave of crypto millionaires, but it also underscores the inequalities that already exist.
It does.
Those who got in early,
Right.
when Bitcoin was risky and unknown,
Mm-hmm.
they're reaping the benefits now.
And others are being left behind.
It creates this tension
Yeah.
between those who see Bitcoin as a path to financial freedom
Right.
and those who see it as making an unfair system even worse.
It's a complex issue.
It is, with no easy answers.
Definitely.
And then there's the impact on the economy as a whole.
Oh, yeah.
All this new wealth from Bitcoin.
Uh-huh.
How does it affect spending?
Right.
How does it affect investments?
Yeah.
And what does it all mean for the economy?
It's like introducing this new element into the mix.
Okay.
Imagine people suddenly having all this money
Yeah.
because of Bitcoin.
Great.
Their spending habits change,
Of course.
and that could impact all sorts of industries.
Like what?
We might see more demand for luxury goods, for example,
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
or more investment in real estate.
Which could boost those sectors.
Exactly.
But this new spending power also has risks.
It does.
What kind of risks?
Well, this influx of Bitcoin money
Yeah.
could inflate prices in other markets.
How so?
People chasing quick profits,
Oh, I see.
which could create bubbles
Right.
and potentially destabilize things.
It's like a ripple effect.
It is.
Bitcoin's price surge impacts things far beyond crypto.
Exactly.
We need to look at the bigger picture.
We do.
It's not just about Bitcoin in isolation.
It's about understanding the broader impact.
Bitcoin at $100,000.
Yeah.
It's a story about so much more than digital currency.
It's a case study in how innovation creates these unexpected changes
Right.
across all parts of our lives.
So with all this complexity,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What should they keep in mind as they navigate this new world?
Yeah, it feels like we've just scratched the surface here.
We have.
So many layers to this whole thing.
Uh-huh.
If you had to boil it all down
Yeah.
to one key insight,
Okay.
what would it be?
I think it's this. Bitcoin at $100,000. Yeah. It shows us
Mm-hmm.
that we're living in this time of really rapid change.
Change how?
Well, everything's converging.
Converging.
Yeah, like technology and finance,
Okay.
psychology, even cultural trends.
Right.
It's all mixing together
Uh-huh.
in ways we don't fully grasp yet.
So the old rules don't apply,
Not really.
and we're all just trying to figure it out as we go?
Yeah, pretty much.
So how do we navigate this new world?
I think we need to understand how it all connects,
Okay.
not just focus on one thing.
Right, not just the headlines.
Exactly, or get caught up in the hype.
We need to be able to see the bigger picture
Yes, connect the dots.
and try to anticipate what's coming next.
Yeah, so that brings us to a final question for our listeners.
Okay.
If Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
an idea that was once considered out there,
Right. Totally fringe.
could become so big and valuable,
Yeah.
what other ideas might go mainstream in the future?
That's what we need to be thinking about.
What might seem radical today
Uh-huh.
could become the norm tomorrow.
It's like a challenge.
It is, to look beyond what we see now.
Yeah, to imagine what's possible.
What trends are out there
Mm-hmm.
that could change everything in the next decade?
We need to be curious,
Right.
open to new ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and think critically.
Yeah, so we can separate the real trends
Exactly.
from the noise.
And maybe
Yeah.
spot the next Bitcoin.
Before it explodes.
The future's full of surprises.
It really is.
We need to be ready.
Absolutely. Well said.
Thanks.
So keep sending us those deep dive requests.
Yeah, we love those.
We'll be back soon with another look at the world beneath the surface.
Can't wait.
Until then, keep exploring, keep learning,
Mm,
and as always, keep diving deep.
absolutely.